makings of a timeless anime villain comes from an assortment of qualities and well-done writing, along with a capable enough plotline. Nothing makes a story more thrilling than a villain who brings purpose to a story. A villain who changes your view on the world and makes you alter your own moral code, or at least question it. A well-written villain doesn't need to just be hoisted up as a plot device for the main character to progress, but needs to come into the story to become a catalyst. At the beginning, there's the introduction. Now, the introduction of the character is easily one of the most overlooked aspects when it comes to anime. We have all seen it time and time again. The overwhelmingly obvious villain whose power is so undisputedly almighty that none have dared to oppose, and those that have were so easily laid to waste. Crocodile and CP9 in One Piece, most DBZ villains, any fairy tale antagonist, and so on. You look at Kaguya from Naruto, a well-written character if the groundwork had been laid years earlier, and not within the final act, because of which it leads to her being a plot device to propel the Boruto story. Because what else would the main protagonist do of Naruto and Sasuke do against this insurmountable mountain that lay in front of them? They would overcome it like any other. Now that's lazy writing. A character of that caliber could have hidden or left after taking damage, not been finished off within 20 episodes of her appearance. This is poor writing and a quickly forgettable villain. This is shown time and time again in the newest season of SAO or many of the villains in One Piece who are just a hurdle for the arc. Now some play a better role such as Enel and Blackbeard, but I'll get to that in a moment. The groundwork for a villain needs to be more than this. That's why characters such as Meruem from Hunter x Hunter, Blackbeard and Enel from One Piece, Pain and Itachi from Naruto, and Ukiura from Bleach are highly thought of recommendations for timeless anime villains. Now, they all may not have the same pieces that make them all great characters, but they have at least one of a few big points. Taking a look at Blackbeard, we see an alternative method to the take on first appearance of an antagonist. Instead of a grand entrance, Blackbeard is overshadowed by the main villain of the current arc, while pieces of his past begin to be revealed, and as the story progresses, we come to understand Luffy and Blackbeard are on the journeys of progress and regression. Even from his first appearance, we see their opposite through their taste of food and drink. Now, I get that the grand I am almighty and none shall dare cross me entrance has its merit. When looking at Madara in Naruto, you can't help but fawn over the absolute destruction and chaos in his first on-screen moments. His entrance was more of a poetic play into madness. Let me take a step back. Looking at the simplistic entrance of Kaido, with ominous music playing in the background, following line after line of his past credits to showcase his overpowering presence. Now that was a shaking entrance, one that is in the history books. But now, we know that there's more than just the entrance. I know an anime villain is more than their entrance. A villain that transcends normalcy brings something to the story that would otherwise fail without them in its place. A villain becomes a catalyst that otherwise without would leave the story in a state of lull. Someone like Blackbeard from earlier, where as the story progresses you come to learn of each step that Luffy comes to make affects Blackbeard, and vice versa. Some villains play to their roles as utterly horrifying at times, as we see with Castor from Fate Zero, a chilling and morally awful person that you can't help but despise. Even within the first 5 minutes, you learn to despise him with his role-playing kindness to lure the child into a false sense of belief of escape, to then send us into a gut-wrenching scene of violence. Madara, along with a magnificent entrance, was more than that. He was a character that was the definition of OP, overpowered. He took out the 5 Kage, and rightfully so. His legacy held up and is the reason he holds so many #1 slots in the top 5 lists. He showcased how he planted his seeds and was the mastermind behind 80% of the series and the catalyst to almost all other villains. He demonstrates time after time his brilliance and power. He, without a doubt, is a marvelous villain. Before I get too worked up, while he has all this going for him, other villains connect with us emotionally, psychologically, and philosophically, such as Ulquiorra, a character at first glance with an epic character design and voice actor, led into a character that tried to understand human emotions, and through his poetic words and last moments, he grasps what emotion is, which completely obliterated my tear ducts. Side note, he also gave us such an overwhelmingly showcased fight between Ichigo and him, showing his power and skill set and his beautiful intellect. Now, this emotion that Ulquiorra utilized to showcase that villains are more than just destruction. This is lifted to even greater heights when Miriam is introduced to Hunter x Hunter, a character who is the epitome of overpowered one-tracked world takeover design. Then, as the story progresses and he comes to learn of the world and has his own internal struggles driven by his connection to Komugi, we see a philosophical query happen in this series that is unmatched by any, and to this day has left me quivering in bed as I laid my eyes on his last moments on screen. It's safe to say that Miriam has changed me as a person. To see his growth from a villain of his caliber to not be taken out by a gung-ho hero, but by brilliant writing, led to him rising to the upper echelon of villains. This we see again in Naruto with the unraveling of Pain and Itachi's characters in the series. We can't help but understand their motives and almost agree with them in why they led the lives that they did. A villain can be just black and white and cookie cutter, and we need that. We need them sometimes. But some animes understand when to use them to world build, and understand when to rhythmically and strategically lay a masterpiece of a villain in front of us. At the end of it, it may not be the grand entrances, the overwhelming might, or the changes the character undergoes that makes them timeless. It's the way the writer connects us to them, whether it be for the absolute thrill we see from their destructive might, our hatred for their evil deeds, a human connection of change that they go through, or it may be as simple as an angelic melody connected to their entrance or any emotional moment that they overtake the screen. Regardless, it only takes one of these pieces to become the catalyst within us to identify them as a timeless villain.